This is Ryan Thomas Neese.
And this is Nicole Neese.
And this is the Closer Podcast.
Hi.
Hi. It's a weird way I said hi. Starting well.
Hi.
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 How's it going? I don't even know what voice that is.
I don't either. But you should stop doing it.
Hello, everybody. This is episode 8. Speaking of episode 8, we've been doing this long enough to now. 8 episodes is enough to start saying, hey, if you like this, would you share it with your friends and family and the general public? Mm-hmm. Not just the people you think need it, because you may get yourself in hot water if you only send it to people who you think could use.
Yeah.
Send it to everyone.
Send it to them.
That way, don't discriminate.
All the peoples.
Yeah. So if you like this, share it. Today we're going to talk about how we met and kind of the ways that conversation has evolved, and just kind of see what we notice about what's evolved, because we have not talked to one another about this in a really long time, to my recollection.
Yeah. What reason would we have to?
I don't know. This historically was a thing that you really loved to talk about. It really was, remember?
I don't know. It was like I loved to talk about it. I just think people ask you how you met. And then I would tell my version of the story. And you would tell your version of the story.
Yeah. It's something that I'm more comfortable talking about now than I used to be. I don't really even know why that I was uncomfortable. I just found it a little annoying.
What?
I do. I don't know.
What was annoying about it?
Well, part of what's annoying is the way that you would answer it. It's just that, like, you had it like packaged as like a pitch for a TV series sort of thing. And I was always like,
Did I? Huh?
I mean, it's the same dynamic as what we ended with on episode 6 in Bad Blood, where, you've got it packaged as like a, see, I swear it was all going to work out. And I'm like, okay, clearly, I think if we look at our first run at this, I have a harder time with anything that presents itself as too neatly packaged. I'm kind of like, yeah. And that's been a thing between us. Remember that, like, some of the time over the past couple of years, I've said to you, like, hey, I need you to carry more of the, like, dissonance and more of the doubt and more of the concern about things. If you do a little bit, at least that's my perspective, it gives me the freedom to take up less resonance there. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I don't know how it applies to our
well, what I'm saying is you tended to tell the story, and so it will be interesting to hear how you tell it today.
Yeah. Probably just going to tell it exactly like I've always told it.
That's exactly. I don't know. I suspect it will be different in some ways. But you always kind of tell it in this very, like, it's just a very wrapped up sort of way. And that it was sort of like star-crossed. And like you do. Oh, let's just let you tell it.
Okay.
Let's just let you.
Okay.
You can go. I mean, I was actually thinking that we might try to tell it together, but maybe that's not possible anymore.
No, I'm just game for whatever. I don't think that I have the same perspective of the neatly packaged. I mean, I would tell it as a story because that's how I tell most things in story format, but I don't think that I tried to neatly package anything. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's. The year was just kidding.
It wasn't. It was actually 2000.
The year was one man, one desire, One decision.
Oh, see? You're already plotting the movie trailer. You've got the voice down. It's already there.
I'm saying.
It's already there. Okay, so you want me to start?
What year was it?
It was 2007. I'm living in Sierra Leone.
West Africa.
Mm-hmm. I had a friend who had just gotten engaged, and she wanted me to meet somebody. And I was not particularly feeling like I needed to meet someone as desperately as she wanted me to meet someone.
Of course.
So true, it is. I had plans. I had things I needed to do before some man was hitched to my hip.
That doesn't track with what you did in a little bit. But okay, keep going. Yeah, I like this.
Whatever. So I had been there for a couple weeks, and she had said, "You're never going to meet anybody traveling all over the world." You know, Southern California was ripe with men who were not looking to be in long-term relationships. And so she said, "Get on eHarmony and you'll meet someone," because that's where I met my spouse. And I remember thinking, and I may have even said to her, "Only weirdos get online and meet their partner."
Yeah. You had a really good future prediction there. Oh, God, only weirdos will be meeting people through online interaction.
Little did I know.
Yes. So this was in an era when smartphones had not even come out yet. And so, you know, there's no online dating. There's nothing like a smartphone to give you an app for online dating. The only things that existed were a few websites.
Yeah.
eHarmony, Match.com existed, and I think
Plenty
there was
of
ones
fish.
like, some random small ones.
Farmers only or something.
Yeah, you always say that one.
I remember it from The Bachelor.
Christian Mingle was another one.
I think I went on that one.
And eHarmony was clearly the mothership in many ways, and like a front runner of trying to forge like real connection.
Yeah.
Because they require you to take like we don't know what they do anymore, but they require you to take back then a really long sort of personality inventory. And then they, had sort of a bunch of steps in communicating with one another versus, I remember back then somebody referred to Match.com as like the meat market, which was just like you can pretty much get on and meet people right away and start talking. And so eHarmony was really the heavy hitter.
Yes. And because some of the other ones you didn't have to pay to be a part of it, it did sort of feel like if you signed up for eHarmony because you had to pay, you were more serious about the process rather than, just getting on and sort of swiping through lists of men or women's faces. So, I think part of it was that. But anyways, go back. She says, you should do this. And I remember thinking only weirdos do that. Not that I had any actual evidence that was true or not. Because,
but it was a strange medium.
Yeah, it was a strange medium.
We didn't, there was no thing.
Yeah. So after being there for a few weeks and had some free time on my hands, I decided, I would give it a go. She had said, if you get on, get like the cheapest membership. If you get on and you meet someone, call it even. If you don't meet anyone by the end of the, whatever one you sign up for, I'll pay you back. And so it was a win-win for me. I was like, okay, I'll get my money back, whatever. So
you needed that sort of.
Yeah, I did. I was broke, I was 20, didn't have 20 something. I didn't have a whole lot of money. Every little dollar counted. So I got on. And I did the test, and I created the profile, and I went through quite a few duds.
What do you mean you went through them?
Well, in that, so you don't get to pick the people you're paired with, right? On eHarmony, they pair you with people based off at least they did, based off of the personality test. And so through those things that you mentioned, there was a series of ways of communicating before you'd get to open communication. One of them was this section where they could ask you any question they wanted to ask you. And every time I'd get to that portion, the guys that I had been talking with would ask me things like, I don't know, what do you like to do on a Friday? What's your favorite color? Like just really stupid questions.
Yeah.
And so I would get there and I'd be like, why am I doing this? It's not keeping my interest. So I was getting less and less interested as the days went on.
How long had you been on? Do you remember?
By the time you and I met, I think 3.5 weeks. I had bought, I think, a 2-month package. So I was getting ready to expire. I was halfway through. And I remember getting your profile. So what they do is they send you like a snapshot. I always refer to it, all the people who are in their 40s and above will remember this magazine. If you were a girl, especially Bop, it was a like popular teen magazine. And that in there, they'd always have profiles of famous people and they would tell you like what they like to eat and what they like to do in their spare time and fun little tidbits. And you, as a 13-year-old girl, would be like, oh my gosh, me and Jason Priestley are totally just destined to be together because we both like Laffy Taffy or something stupid like that. And so the profile you would get, I remember it reminded me a lot of that because it was a snapshot. It was a picture of whoever you were talking to. And then it was things like, what's your favorite book? What do friends say about you? What are hopes and dreams for the future, those sorts of things. What do you do for a living?
Yeah, I don't even remember I don't remember much about the profile.
Yeah, it was really super basic. That's all I can remember. But I remember getting your profile, and the second I got it and I saw your face, I just had this feeling of like, oh, I'm going to marry this guy. And then I was like, oh no. I closed it down. I was like, no, that's not a thing. That was not a thing that I thought about anybody else, nor was I going to think that about some guy that I met online. So I decided not to reach out to you and was just going to wait and see what would happen. And because
the context you used to offer, by the way, there is just that you were really not someone who spent a lot of time fantasizing about
I wasn't.
being married. And is that true? Is that really true?
Still
I mean, you
true.
always say it.
Yes, it's very true. Yeah. I did not think about getting, especially at that stage, I was on a whole nother trajectory. I was open to meeting somebody, but the idea of finding someone so I could hurry up and get married and have kids and start a life, that was just not even on the top 3 of the important things that I was looking at doing.
Yeah. And for me, I remember choosing to get on there. I was not very long out of a longer term relationship. Maybe it was longer for me then, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. 8 to 12 months, something like that. Maybe it was more than a year. I don't remember, but was just kind of like, well, this is as good a way as any. Mm-hmm. And, I was in a time of my life when I was kind of getting out of being out all the time and like going out and meeting people and hanging out at clubs or whatever. Like I was near the end of grad school and, that type of thing can get old quickly. And then I just like also was not terribly interested in, I met people at grad school. I had, church religious involvement. I would, meet people, but I just wasn't meeting a ton of people or meeting people that I guess that felt like options or something. And I remember just thinking like, oh, maybe this is like a good way to sort of connect at the level of the mind first or something. And I hadn't been on, I don't think, a ton longer than that myself.
So you got on with the intent of actually meeting someone?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't?
I don't know. I'm just like, sometimes I'm like...
strange question. So you wanted to meet someone on the dating app?
I mean, really were looking, because you were coming out of a previous relationship, so were you really looking to like truly meet someone or just sort of like move on and see if you can get away from...
I think I was where I was at that time, which you ran into at a certain point, which is that like, yes, I am willing to do this thing. Yeah. Whatever the next step supposedly is, I am not necessarily sure about that. That's how I tended to orient in relationships some of the time. Then occasionally I would meet someone and I would be like hopelessly in love and then be crushed when it ended. And typically I was the dumpee. I was not the dumper. not only and exclusively, but I was way more often than not. Any of the times that I fell hard, it was like, once I fell, I was like, I'm good.
Okay. So you got on. Do you remember seeing my profile for the first time?
Yes, I do.
What was your reaction? Do you remember? That you wanted to marry me and you just couldn't, you had to lock it down.
No, but I didn't have any of those kinds of reactions. I only met 3 women total on the whole site. Wow. And you were the second. Because remember?
Yeah, I do remember.
We'll get to that in a moment. But I remember thinking the same thing that I thought about the other 2, which is, I'm attracted to this person. There's something that's kind of interesting about them. Again, I don't know what it's like anymore at eHarmony, but I really did feel very, on the level of personality, I was very well suited for all of the women that I met. And I remember your blue eyes. And I remember, like, oh, she's in Africa. Interesting. All right. Maybe it would be very like me to be like, oh, okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
And also probably latently aware that there's something sort of safe about the fact that you're
so far away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it may be worth also noting, I don't think I said this part, but when you could search certain parameters of like area, right? You could open it to the whole world. You could pick specific states, whatever.
Yeah, geographic.
Yeah,
proximity.
I did not want to meet anyone in Southern California or California period, because when I got back to the U.S., I was moving to Nashville. And so with my best friend.
You were planning on coming back and moving to Nashville at least were you already on that track?
Yes, that track was already happening. The timeline moved up because I came back from Africa sooner, but that was still the plan. And so I didn't want to meet anyone that was here that would keep me here. So I intentionally kind of picked people in or around Tennessee because I was like, a few states adjacent.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so I see your profile. I'm like, holy crap. And then I locked it down. And then because of the time change, I heard from you. You wrote me first. And it wasn't but a few hours after I had seen the connection piece. And so I got your first message through the first series of steps. We worked all the steps.
Right. It was like closed questions that you picked like multiple choice from a list that they had.
That they created, yeah.
And then there were some, what was it, open-ended questions maybe?
Yeah, it was like 3 boxes where you could put whatever questions you wanted.
And then, yes, you exchanged a list of must-haves and can't-stands, which you also picked from a list of things that were like common rule-outs for people in relationship. And then by the time you got through all of that, I think you got to open communication using their sort of email messaging applet.
Right.
And then finally, after that, you could choose to go through and get their actual contact information. Right. Even then, I think a lot of times it was just email. It was not yet phone and so forth. And people were super dialed in to being protective at the time. Everybody was sort of concerned you were inevitably going to get murdered or something.
Yeah.
But so by the time, we start talking, I don't know how long it took us to get through the planned communication.
I don't know the exact time either. It was relatively quickly though, because the open dialogue happened
probably within a week or something.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we started, and once we got to the open messaging part through eHarmony's website, even that, I think we moved off of that to regular email pretty quickly. And by the end of...
We were really, really risque.
We were.
Screw this. We'll go straight to email.
Straight to email. Watch out. But the emails, they were long. They were a series of tons and tons of questions. And then I would answer them, and then I would ask you tons and tons of questions. And I think for me, that was helpful on the front end of getting to know you, because I was a little bit of a chicken shit when it came to going on dates with guys. I would sort of fumble all over myself. I would like them, date them, and break up with them before I would even like sort of give them my name. So I think the process of getting to know you through the, confines of email and space and time and not being right down the street or somebody that I, knew really well was helpful. So I was drawn in right away. And then I moved back to the US a little while longer and moved up my timeline to move to Tennessee. I was now going to be moving there in the beginning of July. Originally, I was supposed to move there like later that year.
So you're moving in July of 2007.
Mm-hmm. So that time, all during that time, you and I emailed back and forth for about 3 months.
Okay.
And then in March, you sent me an email that said, hey, I need to take a break. And please don't wait for me.
That's right.
If you find someone, I'm so happy for you.
Wow.
I've got to take care of some stuff. And I just remember being like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, dude, I was still in the middle of so much. So much interpersonal work that I was doing. And remember, at the time I'm in graduate school studying counseling. Mm-hmm. And I am not long off a number of sort of really important milestones in my own journey of just sort of like discovering things about myself. If this was 2007, I guess it had been a while, but it would have been like 2000, 2001 is whenever I first had my own first counseling relationship. And I was in counseling pretty good. And that time also was still like I am currently, with mentors and stuff. So I was just really in like a self-development phase. And also by that, we mean that I had a lot of self-development to do. And so I was just like variously, you're going to say this is an unkind way to refer to it, but it's just, I was unstable.
Yes, it is an unkind way to say it.
And I was just trying to figure myself out. I'm, relatively young. How old were we?
27?
Yeah. So we were in our late 20s when this was all going down. So I just needed to take a break for a minute. And I think I was also aware that you were developing real feelings and I was proceeding slower. Mm-hmm. And sort of I just like felt like I didn't have much to offer, to access by way of like feelings. I wasn't ready to like feel a bunch of things. Mm-hmm. 'Cause I, again, was not long off feeling a bunch of things, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what was happening for you during that time. I don't know that we've ever like really dove too much into that. I think I remember, so you take the pause or you say peace out, spoiler alert, we're married. So that I came back around. But I remember you taking the pause, and at the time I had a blog. So we're just really going to pull out all kinds of ancient things here, that I would write about a lot of my time overseas on that blog. Because a lot of people supported me financially. So it was a good way to kind of let everybody know what was happening.
Yeah.
And you were still following that blog. And what I didn't know at the time, but I now know, is that you also created a blog. But the only person who had access to that blog was me. And so you would sort of like, even though we weren't talking every day via email or anything, you would like write little blogs in response to my blogs or pictures you would see of me on MySpace.
Yeah, wow.
MySpace. And I just remember being like, oh, okay, he's still in it. So this works out really well for me because I'm still super interested.
Yes,
And
it's so nice. You always read things so charitably because it's like, you could also read that as, oh my gosh, this guy is telling you no. And then he's over here.
I guess I just decided what I wanted, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'll see what I want to see, I guess. So I remember seeing those little pieces, and the not talking to me thing via email or even by phone, that didn't last for but maybe like 2.5 weeks, maybe.
Oh.
Because I remember it was a very specific day. I had gotten into my car, someone had stole my iPod out of my car because I had left it in my car at my house. And I went, so I was already upset and pissed that happened. I stopped by Jamba Juice to get my daily smoothie on the way into the foster care place that I worked at. Spilt my smoothie all over the front seat of my car.
Oh, I remember this. I remember you telling me about this.
Pulled up to the front of the building where we would check in to grab some napkins. And in maybe the 5 minutes that I was in there getting some napkins, the head honcho showed up and like just chewed me out for leaving my car where I did. So I was just having a really rough day. So I go in, I get my kids up. I was working in a foster home. I get them up, I get them sent to school, and I had a couple down hours. So in my down hours, I got on my blog and wrote about what a shitty day I was having. And shortly after that, you asked if you could call me in response to that. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the first time that we talk. And it couldn't have turned the day around
so in that
better.
first 90 days, we had not actually talked.
No, we had not.
We only talked online.
Yeah. And so you asked for a number you could call. So you called the house phone that I was working at. And we talked for like 2 hours until the kids got home from school. And then I had to finish up my day and leave. And then it just like took off from there, right? So this is, I think, maybe end of March, near your birthday. And we started talking every day. And then in May, it was Memorial Weekend, and you called and said, it was like a Monday, and that weekend was Memorial Weekend. You said, what are you doing this weekend? And I said, not a lot. And you said, do you want to come to Virginia? And I said, sure do. And like, you said, okay, I'm going to book you a ticket. And you booked me a ticket on the phone with me. And I flew out there. And I was supposed to go for 3 days. And instead I went for 5 days. We extended my time because I was just that amazing. You were so blown away by me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then shortly after that, came back, and I was headed to, so this was maybe beginning of June. I was headed to Nashville a month later.
Yes. What's crazy is, like, I do remember all this stuff, but a lot of it is foggier for me. This is what I mean. Like, I was in a different place. Like, I still kind of had my head up my rear end, you know, like recorder button not on as well or something. And I remember really liking you and feeling very comfortable with you. And, you know, I remember picking you up at the airport and bringing you back to my house and all of that. And I remember that you were definitely feeling it. I had to, you know, ask you to restrain yourself.
PG, this is PG, people.
I'm going to check the explicit box on. And I'm serious. I had to ask Nikki to restrain herself a time or two. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is where we do tell the story slightly different, because you act as though I'm the only one who is like, oh, you were feeling it too, bro. Yeah, you were.
The difficulty here is that I had considerably more experience in the dating plus arena.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And so some of this was a little more standard for me. Like this wasn't, well, I mean, the idea, I don't know how to say this.
You're painting it really beautifully. This is great.
I just mean the idea that I met someone that it was going reasonably well right off the bat. Yeah. Or that you seemed to be really, oh my God. I can't say that. You know, I had experienced this type of thing before. And so I was open, but also, again, in both my own way and then in the way as it regards relationship, just proceeding slower.
Yeah. Totally. You definitely were slower than me the whole time. And that, I'm sure, was necessary. But it was also whatever it was. Like, I don't know that if it would have been any different speed, I don't know what else would have happened. But it went just as it was supposed to be, is how I feel about it. So, the visit went well. I think it went well. You think it went well?
Yeah.
Okay, so I leave. And then here's where the tune changes just a little bit for the guy who's been through a lot of dating experience and me, not so much. I was moving to Tennessee in a month.
Right.
You asked me, hey, if I move to Tennessee, is that cool with you? Right? Yeah. And on the inside, I was freaking out like a little schoolgirl and was super duper excited. On the outside, my words were, and I remember them verbatim. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I'm moving there either way. I would love to have you there. Right.
Which again is such a great response, because you can see how, especially in today's jibber jabber culture with dating, you know, the irony that people seem so hungry for connection these days, and that everything that seemingly happens en route to dating can be read as you're being too much kind of thing. Like,
right.
Oh my gosh, like, because really, I mean, thinking about it, you know, that was 30 days off you being there or something, and I'm saying, hey, what if I moved to Nashville?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that seems like a really big step, but, you know, and the truth is, for me, I really did not like where I was at in Virginia for a variety of reasons, and I was not tied there. I had gone to school out there and was just kind of out there working and being an adult and trying to figure that whole thing out. And so I was like, well, I don't know, Nashville's good.
Yeah.
There was really nothing tying me there. And I thought, you know, we got along well, and certainly I could explore. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you were not freaked out by that?
No, it was really... sign me up. I was ready for it to happen. I was like, yeah, bro, let's go.
Was anybody freaked out by it in your life?
No, I think everyone who knew me knew that because I didn't date a ton by choice. And then when I did date, would move on relatively quickly. I think when they saw the way that I felt about you, and because I walked them through every step up until that point, everyone who was close to me was part of the journey. I think they were like, yeah, okay. You know, they were in it for me as well. And so,
got it.
You know, I moved there July 2nd. You did as well. And I think this is where often when we're telling the story to friends, it can be shorter or longer depending on how much we add into the storyline, because this is where the real dating really happens, right? So I moved in with some friends of mine until my best friend was moving out about a month later, and we were going to get our own apartment, so I was staying in a house with a married couple. You were working at a place that would take you away during the week, and you would only be home on the weekends.
Yeah, for that time period, I was in training in Memphis.
Yeah. And so during the week, I would come over and take care of your cats. I would live at your house, take care of your cats. And on the weekend, I would go back to mine, but we would usually spend the weekend together.
That's right.
Right. So about a month of that happens. And one weekend, you came home, I think a bit earlier than when I thought you were going to be home. Mm. I had just gotten in a car accident like the week before, so I had a rental that I had just turned in. Mm. And getting the car rental back and getting back to the house, I hadn't cleaned my stuff up yet. And you came home and my shit was all over your house. And
which, I mean, you had been saying that.
Yes, right.
Yeah. But it was very like lived in, whereas the weekends before, maybe when I came home, you're saying you had
all my
cleaned
stuff
it
was
up
gone.
already.
Yeah. It was as though I was not there. Yeah. Yes.
Which I apparently preferred.
Yeah, I think so. And so we had planned to be together that weekend, and instead you kind of were like, this is too much. And you broke up with me. It was a very long breakup.
I don't remember what was really going on with me, really. This is what I mean.
Either.
Again, I just came home and was like overwhelmed by the presence of you there. And I'm like, holy crap, like, wait a minute. Like, here it is again. It's like, this is moving too fast.
Yes. That's the common refrain.
Yeah, and you had understandably, although you didn't say much to me then, I don't remember what you said. But you were like, dude, you've asked me to be over here. Yes, I would, like, yes, my stuff is, and I'm just like, And I think it must have been highlighting again. I had conflict about it. I liked you. I thought this was kind of nifty, and I just kept being drawn back to, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And at that point, it's less about my previous relationships per se, and more about just me. This is just kind of like who I am.
Right.
I'm like, conflicted about things.
Right.
It's like, it's a thing.
Yeah. And so the part of the story that is truly movie-esque, if you want to say how I paint this picture, is it was storming. I didn't have a car. My housemates were gone because they were on a trip that weekend.
And then their power went out.
And their power went out, and I had no food at the house because I hadn't been there all week, and I hadn't planned on being there for the weekend. I didn't know anybody else in town except for one girl that I worked with who I had known for about a month. And I had, no food, no car, no power. No friends. No boyfriend.
Where was your best friend that you were
She hadn't moved out yet.
Okay.
She was about 3 weeks off.
But maybe that's what I didn't like, because this is a part of the story that I always find that I'm like irritated with you with, because I'm like, I think this is it. I'm like, you can't rely on me this much yet.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like I get it. I get your circumstance. Necessarily, I am also in town, not knowing anyone, and but I'm thinking that I'm going to go spend the weekend by myself. And granted, I guess were the people you were with weren't there, and you were needing support, but I think must be something about that was part of.
Well, I needed food, and Uber Eats didn't exist yet.
Yeah,
there was.
But you could get a taxi, and you could. But you had your car back. Also.
No, I didn't have my car back. I had turned my rental in because I was supposed to actually stay with you for the weekend. We had planned to do things that weekend. Yes. Yeah. And so you broke up with me, gave me one final kiss at the door in the rain. I mean, it couldn't be more cinematic than that. Just come on. And then you turned and walked away, and I wept until I reached out to my one and only work friend, who at the time, her and her husband came and picked me up, and they brought me to their house and let me stay in their guest room.
You must have really made it like you were this poor destitute. You're 28.
I was 27.
You had plenty of agency. 27, fair enough.
I was 27. I was broke in a new city with no friends on a stormy night.
All right. It just felt like a lot for me, apparently.
Yeah, well, I came in hot and heavy, and the rest of your lifetime I've been easy peasy. So... so then we broke up. But then you still needed someone to take care of your cats because you didn't know anybody in town either.
And that was another thing that you did. Again, like you just sort of did each thing correctly, which like I was not trying to do this for sure, because my recorder is just not on, as I said. But like it is a thing that I do relationally sometimes that is 100% earnest. It isn't actually gamey. It's kind of like who I am. I think I set up like little obstacles to see how you cope with them, sort of thing. You know what I mean? And like it isn't that it's a binary though, right? Like I set up an obstacle, and you think, well, did you jump over it or did you trip over it? Yeah. And if you tripped over it, well, then you lost. And if you jumped over it, you won. And I'm like, no. Yeah. How did you jump over it? Yeah. What happened when you fell over? Yeah. Like that sort of thing. So I do think you played your cards really well with me at each turn, because it was basically like, I was like, cool, I want you close. And then I'd be like, I don't want you close. Yeah. And you would do that. Yeah. And sort of, except for I didn't know that you were seducing me.
Masterminding it over here the whole time.
Totally.
What he didn't know was that every time, so I continued to take care of his cats for the remainder of his training in Memphis.
Right. Potentially against the advice of some friends.
Yes, who were absolutely against the advice of every person in my life except for one. They all were like, oh, that's probably not the best of ideas. And I said, well, you don't know. And actually me and the best friend, who moved there very shortly after this, the only argument we've ever had was around me continuing to engage with you.
That's awesome.
And it was...
Glad I could be the source of.
Yes, well, but what it was I knew if this was a mistake, it was a mistake I had to make, not one that someone could save me from. So it was like, let me make the mistake. So I did. I continued to take care of the cats. It's also I think just in my nature. It wasn't all just about trying to, seduce you into coming back to me. Yeah. But I damn sure did make sure I smelled good, looked good, and all those things every time I dropped those keys at the end of the weekend. It would be like, oh, don't you miss this? Right? And you did. You would ask me to go out and spend time together as friends.
I remember that one time in the blue polka dot dress.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we went to Steak and Shake.
We did.
Remember?
Mm-hmm. I do remember.
They don't have Steak and Shake in California. If you've never had it, you are letting the best in life pass you by.
Yep.
You need to check it out somewhere.
I was in a very cute blue and white polka dot dress with a red belt. I remember that.
And then there was the other time to the mall.
Yep. Good old buckle. Went in to get some jeans. The guy that helped me, in the middle of him helping me, you left the store. I finished. I walked out. I said, "Why did you leave?" And your phrase was, do you remember?
I don't, but I'm sure you're going to tell me.
It was. You were super upset. I said, "Why are you upset?" And you said, "Just because I broke up with you doesn't mean I don't still have feelings for you." And it was right then where I said, "Cha-ching!" And I was like, "Oh yeah, bitches, I got him." And so I said that internally, but I also was pissed at you because I was like, that you have some nerve, right? To like be mad that someone else is giving me some attention. I actually didn't notice that at all. I don't think he was doing anything. I think he was just trying to make commission by selling some jeans. So he was being helpful. But I'll take whatever it produced in you because that was like step one, I think, in the starting to turn back towards, because this is like mid-October and you went back to Virginia in October to do some dental work, I think.
I did. I had some dental work that had been rather extensive, and some of it had needed to be slightly repaired, and they offered to fix it for free if I came back out. And so I did, and while I was there, I ran into like an old fling, I would say. And she sort of implied, if not outright stated, that I, in her estimation, I appeared to be fat and pale. That I had apparently gained weight and lost my tan since we left. And I remember I was staying at this friend of mine's house, and I was staying in his attic. And I remember at the end of that night, I went up to bed, and I was sort of laying in the bed staring at the attic ceiling. And I remember thinking, I don't know what I'm looking for in all of these relationships that I've had, and whatever it is, I'm not seeming to find it. And then I remember just sort of thinking, sort of like, okay, dude, here you have this woman back in Nashville that is clearly into you, dying to be with you, and you're, going back and forth. And then you're over here seeking out a woman who's treats you like this. Like, what's the deal here? And I was like, I don't know what the deal is. But all right, I'm gonna not do that. And so then I did. I think what I did was like call you or email you, and I said like, can we talk when I get back? Is what I remember saying.
Yeah.
And then we did.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, listen, I would have said, outside of some of the hiccups of the ending of our relationship, the first part of our relationship, there was a lot of like really beautiful, wonderful moments, and you treated me really well. But the version of you I got when you decided to like go all in, which is how I like think about the time after you came back from Lynchburg, was totally different. And I was like, holy crap, is this like, was I getting like the B- version, and now this is the A+ version?
You're just like, getting the version that was not where you were yet.
Yeah, but I don't know what that says about me that I was willing to accept the B- version, but the A+ version was, I don't know if I would have married the B- one, but the A+ version that came back around, I mean, it was just like night and day difference.
Yeah,
in a
the
lot of
word
ways.
that comes to mind is intentional.
Yeah,
Like,
you were very intentional.
what you had before was me sort of casually being like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, it was during this breakup time period also where I met the third woman who, as a matter of fact, I was kind of doing the same thing with, although it was just, whatever, 60 days or something, whatever the kind of down period was. And she actually asked me to sort of like, hey, like, are you into this? Like, I'm into it. Like, I need you to be into it. And I said sort of what I'm saying to you is like, yeah, yes, I'm into this. Like, if you are asking me to be farther than this, no, I'm not there yet. And no, I cannot give you any guarantees as to. And by the way, this was like a new leaf for me somewhat, because I think I used to accidentally, I grew up thinking you were supposed to be more covert about this sort of thing. And if I didn't, I learned it because I kept getting my heart broken. And so I was guarded. And she was like, no, I'm good on that. Like, if you can't give me any more assurance, then like, yeah, I like what's happening right now, which is an interesting approach, by the way.
Yeah.
I meet a lot of people clients and otherwise, who sort of have that approach in dating. And I'm like, what are you wanting them to like double stamp yes, I'm into this forever? But I also understand at the same time, she was just saying like, hey, I'm getting the sense that you are ambivalent. And whereas I would say that was not the right move. If she had wanted to, she would have had to be with me where I was at. You were willing to do that.
Yeah.
Be with me where I was at and sort of see what happened.
Yeah.
Whenever I came back, I was like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
And then you get a lot more of my like intention. I don't know why that.
What's happening?
I don't really know. I think it's just like hearing you say that, which is not the first time I've heard you say it. I just like, nice to remember, like, I don't know exactly remember that about me. Like, nice to be noticed, Like, yeah, whenever I put myself into something, like I'm really there. Like I really inhabit the space once I'm into it. And maybe that was like I think that's like a bruise for me, like over, like not just romantic relationships, but like relationships is sort of like people not noticing like the level of intentionality I put into things and or treating it very casually if they do notice.
Yeah.
And maybe I think a lot of women didn't know what to do with it because it's also intense sort of thing or something. I only know that because that's the feedback. I'm just like, well, this is just who I am. I don't know what you want from me. You don't want me to show up at your house at midnight? No, I'm just kidding. I didn't do stuff like that.
No,
Maybe I'm not above it. But
you were also
yeah,
20-something. I mean, come on.
I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect to be moved by that. It's weird.
I like it. I like you remembering that for yourself and what that feels like.
Nighttime sky, I'm by your side.